Hi, it's Pam Lippitt from the Hill Street Group on the podcast, Communication is an Art. I am really happy to introduce you today to someone who I think is going to become a good friend. I know that sounds odd, but when you get that gut feeling that something is sparking and there's a place to work together and really interact, I just felt that. So with that, I am introducing you today to Rebecca Leader, I'm not sure, and I didn't ask that before, so I will ask that when we start. But I want to introduce you to Rebecca, who has this great book called Knock: How to Open Doors and Build Career Relationships That Matter. So with that, I am bringing Rebecca onto the stage. So is it Letter or Leader?
Leader.
Leader. Okay. So Rebecca Leader, and Rebecca's in Denver and I am in Michigan, outside Detroit. And so welcome to the podcast.
Yes, I love it. That introduction was very energizing. Thank you.
Well, we'll see if we're still I'm still energized by the end, but I hope to be.
We will be.
So I'm hoping that if you're listening or you're watching this uncut on YouTube where things are blinking a little bit, you will learn something just like I've already learned from Rebecca's book. Even though I'm in the communication field, that's what I love about doing this podcast. We all learn from each other. So do a little introduction and a little background for us.
Yes, awesome. So happy to be here. I'm Rebecca Leader. I live in Denver, Colorado, as Pam mentioned. Before that, I was in Chicago, and before that, I was in Austin, Texas, Hook 'em Horns. And I got my start in digital marketing and was always interested in business and creativity and little jingles and advertising, and really wanted to pursue business. But over the years, I made several career changes, whether it was working for small marketing agencies, working for myself when I was in mid-20s, and then also making a big pivot to work for a big global technology company to sort of boost my expertise and knowledge. Over those career pivots, I realized that something came naturally to me, and that had to do with career development. So how was I able to always check in with myself, figure out if I was still feeling fulfillment, if I was still growing, if not, where could I grow in the direction that I wanted to grow in? And I made several changes with not ease, but it wasn't something that I dreaded. I was excited to make these changes, whereas many people are stressed about the job search, stressed about interviews, and those kinds of networking conversations. So I realized that was one of the missing pieces that I was going to be able to help serve people with. And the other was building relationships along that career journey, wherever my career took me or wherever I took my career. And so currently, my company Opportunities Knock builds learning experiences to help build skills that develop relationships that are important in our careers. So that may be communications, it may be collaboration, it may be collaborating across teams within an employer organization, or building deeper relationships with clients and customers. Or for startup founders, how might we build better relationships, deeper relationships with investors and partners and stakeholders? And so the convergence of connection and career is where my work focuses. And I help teams do this through learning experiences that I've designed and delivered, including my framework, which is part of my book, Knock: How to Open Doors and Build Career Relationships That Matter. So,
well, you start your book with a great story about a startup who wasn't getting the traction they wanted or needed to move forward with what they were trying to do. And it's kind of elementary. It's the thing we tell people to do, to find an article in the news or find something that relates and just keep going back to create the relationship, and that the end goal will work out, to just keep doing that. And I thought that was a terrific way that we all talk about, but that this couple followed with such clarity to get to where they needed to get to, till they switched it over to the funder saying, okay, now it's time. They never really asked again, but heard now it's time.
Yes. So you're referring to a story. This is how the book starts. An amazing couple out of Chicago who designed or built a school for children with specialized learning needs that they realized their daughter didn't have access to. And so they were going to build it themselves. This is Jeff Ader and Jennifer Levine, amazing couple. Walcott College Prep is the school. I've been there. It's phenomenal. And what Pam's referring to here is that until they had specifics about what they wanted to build and they knew answers to what the people they were building relationships with wanted to know, they weren't able to sort of build that relationship. So they were investing in the relationship up front. They were also investing in the project and realized we need to have some of these questions answered before we can build that trust so that people who are going to fund and support this project, the building of this school, are going to feel like they're a part of this with us instead of, hey, I need money, I want to build a school. And someone could say, hey, I don't have money to give you right now. Sorry. Instead of it being that transaction, it was let's figure out how to build that relationship, build trust, and build it together.
You know, I've done a lot of big asks when I run nonprofits. And I always say that there comes a point in the conversation when the person you're talking to, instead of talking about the organization, is you are trying to do this or you are looking at this, it changes to the word we. And all of a sudden, your prospect, for lack of a better word, your prospect said, well, we could do this. If we really concentrate, we could do this. And I often say to them at that point, okay, I know that you just made that switch, that you want to be part of this. Now let's talk about how that could come together and work. And it's that shift, that mindset shift that allows us to go forward. And I think that happens in career relationships as well. You know, that it's not someone who's helping you, it's someone who's on your team. So how do you, I know you talk about 5 steps to building higher quality relationships, career relationships, we'll put that up. So talk to me a little bit about how you make that arc work.
Yes, I love that you just said that, where the switch goes from I to we. One of the key ingredients here is a sub-element of one of the knock method steps, which is impact. And I think that's one of my favorite conscious pieces that we have to think about. And when we are conscious of it, it can really shift all of our communications. It can shift all of our relationships. And what I mean by that is, you're talking about, okay, now we focus on the we instead of the I. This is what I need. This is what you could do for me. Now we're talking, okay, here's what we could do together. But what is the bigger impact of that? So if we were to partner, so focusing on the we could help thousands of students over the next 5 years on their trajectory to a higher education or a career that's meaningful, in this example of the school. Right. Or even in your email subject line, I coach on this and I teach this in my workshops. How can you put impact in the email subject line? So instead of, sometimes I'll say referred by Pam Lippitt, and then people will be like, oh, I know Pam, so I probably know this person or someone I want to know. But referred by Pam Lippitt to talk about career podcast ideas. Okay, now I want to know what I can be a part of and who I can help. Or referred by Pam Lippitt to help thousands of people on a meaningful career journey. And you're like, what's this email about? I want to open it. So I encourage people, and I even guide them through experiences where they think about not just what they do or what they're bringing to the table, but what's the domino effect of if you were to partner? How might you help your community? How might you help a bigger team? How might you improve a company or organization? How might it help people's well-being? So like when we talk about careers or even the job search, one of the biggest impacts we think about is, oh, well, we filled the role, right? So great, that role's no longer open. Well, you're also helping people build wealth, generational wealth in their families maybe. And that's another purpose to attach to. So now an employer is no longer only focused on, okay, we need to help our customers. And we're helping build a meaningful workforce that has work where they're fulfilled, and we're taking care of their needs, including their healthcare benefits, and we're giving them vacation time to support their families so that they can come to work and do meaningful work for our customers and for our company, and we can help individuals. So you asked how can we do this, and one of the strategies and things we can be conscious of when we're building relationships is what's the bigger impact of partnering.
Right. And right, because it's so transactional just to hire someone to fill a role. Right.
Right.
So I know one of my former bosses, they sold the company. That's why I'm not there anymore. They only took their engineers with them, not their support people. But we had coffee the other day. 3 years later, 4 years later, post pandemic, I think even.
Awesome.
But why did we have coffee? Because to me, that was a relationship that got built, and I wanted to ask him some questions and get some support from him. And I knew that he would continue to support my journey as I would continue to support whatever he would want from me. I've introduced him to a lot of people over the years, and I know that that's something he's appreciated, and it becomes a two-way. It's a two-way street. If working at a company isn't a two-way street, I think everyone ends up miserable.
I agree. There's several examples of this where I've become sort of friendly work colleagues with someone who I interviewed to work on her team, and it didn't work out in that capacity, but then we continued our coffee connections and had lots in common. And I asked for mentorship at some point, and eventually she ended up joining my broader team. And so, I've been in conversations and workshops where people have said, I didn't even think of a recruiter as a person because I was just so focused on, are they going to like me? Am I going to do well in the interview? Am I going to get the job? They didn't stop to think like, oh, they just got back from vacation. Maybe I should ask how that went. And so, yes, it's really boiling all of this down to focusing on the human level of our relationships, which can be tricky when we have goals and needs, and we want to be hired yesterday, or we're trying to get to the next step in our careers. Or we're trying to make a sale, whatever that may be. But it's really thinking about slowing down.
Yeah.
And I'll take a pause when I say that because I need a reminder too, to really think about who's on the other end. And I also think another big component of this is the reason why we slow down and try to get to know the other person is because how can we seek something if we don't know what's important to the other person? And there have been times where people have approached me to partner in a certain capacity, and they didn't stop to say, but is this what you value? So like maybe they value, in the case of my previous life of blogging, people would come to me and say, oh, we'll offer you that, we'd love to provide you with some product if you'll review it, if you'll write about it. And at the time, maybe I didn't want product. Maybe I needed exposure. Maybe I needed a mention. Maybe I wanted to do a guest blog because I was trying to boost my writing expertise. And so really trying to understand what other people value and what's important to them, and the fact that it can change, which is why building that relationship over time is helpful, because I'm guessing the person that you met for coffee that you used to work with, they're in a completely different spot as when they were working with you now.
Yeah, he's retired. He sold the company for a lot of
money.
Yeah. But he likes to have his fingers in the pie, and he knows that I was able to introduce him to the former governor, and I will be able to introduce him, and I introduced him to the current governor, and I'm hoping if my pick works, I'm hoping I will introduce him to the next governor, who's actually a friend. So, we'll see how, it's a time, it's investing not only your knowledge, but your time and your support for each other that creates these connections. And I think that, something like LinkedIn helps us with that, because we can tag someone, we can send someone a message and say, oh, I saw this and I thought of you. Do you know the power of those words? I thought of you.
It's huge. And you're reminding me too, where we talk about nurturing relationships and, oh, you can send something to someone easily. And another question I get asked frequently is like, how do I maintain all of these relationships? Because throughout your life, you're going to be in different spaces and you're going to be at conferences or wherever, and you meet people, you connect, and maybe you continue conversations later or you don't. But people will follow that up with, well, I feel like maybe too much time has passed for me to reach back out. It's already been 3 years, it's already been 5 years. And in that case, I'll say back to what you said, which is to say I thought of you, it doesn't really matter when you thought of them and they came up in your mind. And that's come up a lot for me. And a specific example in the book, when I had the privilege of interviewing Adam Grant, who is one of my inspirations. And I had the privilege of interviewing him, but I years later had to ask for approval for the quotes and the interviews that we conducted to publish the book. And I thought, I was so embarrassed. Like, it's been so much time. Why is it taking me so long to write this book? Which I've since let go of that because it's published, it's out in the world, and creativity doesn't have a timeline. And so I'm proud of that. But it didn't matter. I reached back out and I used a subject line with impact in it. Our interview from 2014 has helped this many people to kind of, spark his interest. And he's amazing at email, I will say, even being such a famous and demand person. And he did respond. And thankfully, we were able to do this. And, I was highlighting the value that his interview with me was going to have on my readers and continuing to have on my readers. But people will start to feel like, oh, it's too late to follow up. It's too late to, too much time has passed. And it's like friendship and it's like relationships in our lives. Things kind of ebb and flow. And you can always make a joke or acknowledge like, oh, it's been so much time. Like we need to catch up. I'm sure we need an extra long coffee or something like that. But it's just part of the relationship landscape.
I find if someone has something nice to say, it's never been too long.
Exactly.
You weren't asking him to do a whole new interview. You weren't asking him to sell the book for you. You weren't like going whatever. You were just like catching up. And so it's like the friend that, sometimes you don't see someone for a really long time, but you feel like when you finally get together, finally talk with them, it picks up. It doesn't start over. It just is all of a sudden you're like in the present. I love those. I love friendships that stay in the present, even when you haven't spoken in a long time, that just picks up that thread and goes. That's when you know it's a good friend. That's when you know it's a good relationship.
That's a great way to phrase it. And I think sometimes there is a little bit of a recalibration. Sometimes you're in a very different spot in your life. And it's like, we do have a lot to catch up on. Let's do that. But yes, career relationships are similar. And a lot of people will say they're like building friendships. And if we can sort of take that perspective, then it's takes the pressure off of like, I need an answer right away, or I didn't get what I wanted. And so that's kind of the mindset that we bring to these relationships.
And they're good mindsets, I think. I think they're really good. So tell us a little bit about some of these other 5 steps that you talk about.
Yes. So I'll tell you about a couple others. The C in Knox stands for commonality. Okay. That one's one of my favorites because we get a lot of imposter syndrome when it comes to reaching out to someone who we feel like has a wealth of knowledge in something that maybe we don't have knowledge in, or we're trying to grow into a space and they've been in that space for a long time. And so we're like, why would they even take time to speak with me? In one of my workshops, I had a slide that said, people will ask themselves, who am I to reach out to this person? Like they're going to think, why would I respond? And I crossed out the who and I changed it to how. How am I to reach out to this person? And we can do it. We can do it. I've done it. I have lots of examples and I continue to do it. And it's still always a little bit challenging, but it's like reaching. But one of the things that can reduce the reach so it doesn't feel like they're light years ahead of us is commonality. And it can just be we're from the same city, we study in the same place, we have the same interests, we have mutual contact. Whatever those areas of commonality are can help sort of level the playing field. And I say make a relationship feel more personal and familiar instead of oh, someone wants something from me and it's like, a spam call. Like, what do they want today? Instead, it's like, okay, I have a mutual contact. At a minimum, we could talk about the mutual contact.
Right.
So commonality is one of the sort of great equalizers when it comes to connecting with people that either those around us or we see as being sort of at a different level than we may be at.
Yeah.
And then another one, which I know you maybe wanted to tune into here, is the K. The first K in knock is know my topic and my contact. And we spoke about this briefly in the beginning with the couple who built the school in Chicago. But sometimes we'll be reaching out for something because we just have tunnel vision and we're going down our list and now I need to reach out to this person and this person. And then they answer the doors. This is why it's called knock or the knock method. We reached out, we knocked metaphorically, and they answer the door. And then we're like, oh, what are we going to say? I don't even know what to talk about at the coffee meeting. Like, oh, they said yes. Like, I'm so terrified that they actually responded, right? And so having some of those questions and that preparation in advance so that you're ready when they do say yes, you're now ready to lead that conversation, set an agenda if you feel like that's warranted, so they know that you've prepared and you're coming to them ready to have a thoughtful conversation and make the best use of their time. So one of the key phrases in knock is prepare to connect. And so it's not something we often think about. And I sometimes tell this story about like when I was younger and dating, and I would, with online dating, you're connecting with different people. And so you haven't met them before. It's almost like a blind date, but you might know what they look like and some things about them. And so like on my way to meet someone, I would be like repeating their name to myself, like, oh, Jason, or like Chris, whatever the name was, because I was like, I don't know this person yet. I have to remember. And I was like, okay, here are some things we've talked about. This is what I could bring up. Or even, as you mentioned, with friends that I haven't seen in a long time, I'll remember sort of where we left off, and I'll be like, okay, this will be a great place I want to make sure to ask about this vacation or this new job change or their kids or whatever's going on. And so it just takes a few minutes to say like, okay, I'm getting ready for this meeting. I'm going to think a little bit about some questions and some details to just sort of make it a richer experience. And we think about that for interviews, but we don't often think about that for a quick meeting or a casual coffee chat. And so just challenging ourselves to think ahead a little bit more to deepen that connection can be really helpful.
I just have to say, I think they're mowing my lawn. I'm not sure why. It's supposed to snow again, but
happy spring.
Yeah, exactly. But I was going to say that sometimes it's even good to really let the person know why you're connecting. I don't have time to just randomly do a 20-minute meeting just because you say, you and I know so-and-so, I want to talk to you. No, it's just like, I think it's important to send out an agenda before a meeting. You want the other person to have an idea of what you're going to be talking about. The chances of them saying yes are so much higher because you're really showcasing what their expertise is that you're asking them about. Yes. I know you've been really successful at doing X, Y, and Z. Could I pick your brain for 20 minutes as I enter this phase of my life, right? Or this phase of my career? You're acknowledging they've been there, they've done that, they've succeeded at it. People like to share success. When I've worked with startups, one of the things that startups seem to do is have 6 slides telling all the iterations of their product or service that didn't work before they say, and on the 7th time it worked. and I say to them, they don't care. Mm-hmm. That's great when you're talking to a friend, but they only want to, prospective investor only wants to know why it's working now. It's the same thing. Oh, there's hair. There's the same thing about, meeting with someone. You want to hear their success. You don't really want to hear, and they don't want to necessarily share the number of times that it hasn't been successful.
I could not agree more. I think when you were talking about, stating why you want to meet with them, there's another part of that, which is the research and preparation part. And another component of one of the knock method steps is investment. It's not necessarily financial, but investing in the relationship up front. And that's taking action to show that this is a person you want to meet with. And so what you're reminding me of is that you're also showing I've done my research and I know a little bit about you. So again, that you're not reaching out to 100 people. You're reaching out to you, to Pam, because I know that you have experience in X, Y, and Z. And so not only does it help you figure out what you're going to meet about, but it proves that you've invested in this relationship up front and you've thought about them, what they bring to the table. And of course, that gives an opportunity for them to say, well, what you see on LinkedIn is this, but you may not have known this about me. So we also have to, I say, knock and keep the door open, because we may have a perception of how we want the meeting to go or what an outcome might be, but we also need to be curious and be open enough, because your idea of what a great partnership could look like may not be the best way that they want to show up in the relationship, and you may come up with some idea that's even more impactful and better. Right. So it's important to highlight that you've done the research and you already thought through why they would be a great person to connect with, and that makes people feel good too. Like, okay, they really thought about this. This is a no-brainer for me to say yes. But also that we knock and we leave that door open, because here's what I noticed, but I'd love to hear your thoughts, because this is what I'm trying to solve for. And maybe you have some ideas too. And then you could end up somewhere completely different, but you at least started off with those good intentions.
So Rebecca knows this. I say this in most of my podcast episodes. I do not script anything except the first kind of topic we're going to talk about, because I want to listen and go from there. And I don't want a piece of paper on the side that says question 3, 4, and 5 that I have any idea I want to get to. And it's the same thing. You wouldn't necessarily go to meet someone for coffee and bring a list of 5 questions, because you want to see where the conversation goes. That's the spontaneity. That's the magic of life. And I think we found that when we did our little pre-interview, right? And so those are things that allow for the serendipity of life. You know, it could end up being that you're talking about going to different countries, or what other threads where your life has overlapped that you may not have even known if you followed a script. So while I'm prepared, I would say I'm definitely a prepared person. I am not a scripted person. That's my goal in life, to be conversational and listen. So
you are excelling at that. I think it is the balance, like the preparation, but then the openness, so that you can let it flow.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So we've got about 3 or 4 minutes left. And so I want to hit some highlights. So tell us, give us an example of how this method has both worked for you personally and for your favorite client. How's that?
That's a great one. And this is where, when you're in this seat without the preparation, you got to go really quickly in your mind. Can you repeat the question?
So how the knock method personally has worked for you, an example of how it worked, and like a story from a favorite client or person you've shared, or a reader that has let you know why this has been successful. So yes. It's a 2-parter.
Absolutely. Love it. So it's helped me in so many ways. So I sort of documented my process as I was trying to figure out if this was something I could teach and help others learn. And then I conducted research to kind of understand why components of it would work, and then interviewed people and saw overlaps. So coming full circle, how it's helped me, 2 quick examples. One is how I found my editor. For when I was writing my book, I was exploring different paths to paths to publishing. And I was kind of Googling different terms, trying to familiarize myself with different avenues. And I came across a blog post that was comparing different avenues. And I reached out to him and said, would you be willing to kind of share some more of your advice in these areas? And I had seen that who ended up being my publisher, Greenleaf Book Group. Thank you. Who I also interned with in college. So that was a full circle moment. He had also published co-authored books that were published by Greenleaf. So I thought, okay, there's a couple of points of commonality here. And sure enough, he did respond when I knocked to open the door. And I did have to sort of prove that I was doing the work and I wasn't just asking for free advice, although he was happy to share it. And so that kind of led us to him, being my editor, and Josh, he's amazing. Josh Burnoff, love him. And so I used the knock method. I used the knock method for every interview that I conducted in my book. And I had to be very thoughtful about my outreach and how I crafted the outreach message. And that's now what I help people learn how to do, how to reach out to anyone in your career through email primarily to highlight mutual value and unlock those doors. So that's one example. And another would be when I was going through a full-time career job search earlier in my career, ended up being about 4.5 months long, which doesn't sound super long, but when you're doing it all day, every day, it is, you don't know when it's going to be the right fit. And
I just want to say the reason it was only 4.5 months, which is very short these days, is because it was all day long.
Yes, it's true. This is true. Yes, thank you for reminding me of that effort. And I used a spreadsheet where I would highlight the companies, that roles I was interested in, who I knew at those companies, or if I could find a mutual contact, or if there was someone else in a similar role that I chose to reach out to, not cold, but warming up that outreach using the knock method. And I would keep track of that. But the biggest part of this spreadsheet tracking to keep track of my connections through the job search was I have a pie chart in Knock, which highlights that about 75% of that time was used researching just companies, people. How was I going to, is it a fit? What's the best opportunity? Who do I want to reach out to? Where do I want to apply? About 20% was preparing my cover letter, resume, personalizing it for that opportunity to showcase what we could do together. And only 10% of it, 10% was meeting with people. And that's how I feel it's true in our careers, is that we may get a 25-minute Zoom call by the time you join and you get off. And so that's why that preparation can be really key in setting up a very meaningful interaction that leads to longer term, mutually beneficial career relationships.
Yeah, because you want to leave them wanting more. Well, that's really interesting. We need to talk more to see what the next steps are, to see what the next opportunities are, to see how the fit works more than once. That's the goal. The goal of a first interview is not to get a job.
It's or first coffee chat.
Second interview. Right?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Get past the screener, get past the recruiter to the hiring manager. Yes.
Exactly. And so, and real quick, because we're really running close out of time, we have 2 minutes, maybe a minute left. Tell me the best story you've heard back from someone who's used the method.
Yes, there are many. One person reached out like, yes, there was someone I really wanted to be my mentor and I was worried about reaching out, and I reached out and she said yes, and I'm so happy. And it made a big difference. And not only did she have the benefit of that sort of mentoring relationship starting, but now she knows that she can do it anytime she wants to connect with anyone else in her career.
That's great. That's great. Rebecca, this was fabulous. I think we had a great time together. I always like learning. I'm a lifelong learner. And so I think that's the biggest part of why I'm enjoying doing this podcast. I hope you who are listening, or you who are watching the uncut version with the little pop in and out of the light, because I don't know why that's happening, but whichever way you're listening or watching, I hope you too will give us the feedback of how it worked for you. What's happening. And if there's going to be in the description and in the bottom of the YouTube some opportunities to get a copy of Knock, and I highly recommend it. This is not a pitch show, but I want to really, I learned a lot and I'm keeping learning. So I will finish reading this because I know I'm a good connector and I teach methods to do that. But this really is a different level, the next level after you finish my series. So thank
Perfect.
you, Rebecca. This has been wonderful, and
Thank you, Pam.
I look forward to us talking again.
Me too. The door is open.
Oh, good. And I'll knock.
Perfect.